Hello, I'm Rochi,
And I'm Khani.
and this is the Dare to Differentiate podcast. Welcome and thank you for joining us at this very important conversation. Today is we're going into Rosh Chodesh Adar, Mishenichnas Adar Marbin B'Simcha, and the discussion we'll be having today is focused on the pasuk in Yeshaya that says "V'chitetu charbaisam leitim," that before the Mashiach comes, there's going to be a time that the people of the world are going to take the swords and transfer them over to plowshares. And we're going to try to delve into that and see how that connects in a practical way in our lives.
That we're talking about the idea and the reality of funneling or re-budgeting, basically cutting funds from the military and pouring it into agriculture. And basically budget, like reorganizing the books to where the money goes, because historically speaking, I think most major strong countries always really focused on pouring money into their military, because that's where they can show their power and their might, and really show how much control they have and how much money they have and how much influence. And that was really all expressed through war.
Right.
It's interesting because when you talk about power and money and influence and how that's shifted so much in the past, for sure, 50, 70 years, let's say after World War II, and then if you want to come a little closer and, each of the years following that, what those shifts looked like, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And I mean, of course, in the 90s was a huge shift of that, especially the early 90s, and here we're talking about, if you say the word influencer and what that means to somebody in 2021, it's a huge shift.
Yeah.
And I don't even think we were planning to go there. I think we were really trying to more focus on
We had an agenda, but it seems like
exactly, got derailed a little. What we wanted to talk about was the idea of what it looks like and what it means to invest in agriculture over military, and what each of those represent, and how that plays itself out into our personal lives.
Well, we can talk about an influencer for a minute. Maybe an influencer versus like a
monarch.
Or, well, I wasn't even thinking about a monarch. I was thinking about a person that's in the army. Well, it would be like the general, or I don't know what level of that would maybe be. Because, an influencer is saying that you have some power over the people that you influence. So it might be to sell a product, it might be to sell an idea, or it might just be to, I don't know, just to be like a role model.
Yeah, build community.
Yeah, build community. Building community is huge, actually, within the influencer world. So that's interesting.
Yeah. It's funny because I did not think about this at all before. The idea of how much the industry of influencing has really, really taken off, and what that means for Mashiach, because until the Friedrich Rebbe actually specifically closed the door on the way the world operates, because that's how it was. That's how people communicated. That's how countries interacted with one another. That was the language. The language was war, always.
You kill each other in order to show your power, pretty much, or to
destroy. Chaos.
Assert your dominance over a land or over a group of people. And that's really not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it's not an accepted thing in our world, let's just say.
Yeah, and then I guess you mentioned dominance. So, influence, dominance, what that looks like in a more expansive way. And what dominance looks like, using dominance for something powerful and something healing. Because if you look at the theme of war, destruction, chaos, explosions, killing people, whatever, versus literally just working the land, cultivating the land, collaborating, planning to feed
Yeah.
and nurture the people, and prioritizing that over conquest,
Right.
dominance.
So it's like dominance of feeding people versus showing your strength and power. But when I think of dominance in 2020, I think of self leadership, which is a whole other thing, which we probably won't go into now.
Why not? Let's jump in.
Yeah. So dominance is basically when you like. I think the old frame of monarchy is where you can control the people around you, right? You can control your subjects, and that's what showed leadership. And I think what's important now and I think the influencers are learning this quickly because they see how their followers are kind of following or what they catch on to, and it's really important for people like anyone that wants to assert any kind of dominance, which is really anyone, because we're here and we want to make a difference. So this idea of dominating is the idea of really like taking control of your own inner compass and your own inner world, and then by then you kind of spread that out. But that's not.
Yeah, is that well? I
Does that
guess
connect to the?
no, absolutely. I feel
Okay.
like it's such a great point. The idea of self leadership
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and how self leadership is at the core of all these things, and the people who are not doing that are losing the game.
Yeah.
They're not front and center. The people who are really turning inward and really working on cleaning up whatever's going on in their own personal lives and really choosing to lead themselves,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are really making a difference. And the crazy thing is that you can see it.
That's insane.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, we're not talking about these like it used to be like, who were the leaders? There were these crazy drunk people who had, like, everything at their disposal to whatever they wanted, and they had no control over their desires or anything. Now it's like the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You think, what were these monarchs doing in their the conquest of these, like, they had no scruples, like,
Right, none.
they were not any they weren't respectable, and I think
Moral.
moral,
Upright.
exactly. And a lot of these things are coming out, that a lot of the leaders in it's fascinating, actually, because I didn't even think of that. Off script here.
We're totally off script today.
But it's just really fascinating to think about in those terms. And obviously, if you look at other leaders, influencers, like, in Hollywood or whatever, and that's not the case. But that's also not, it's not that's not necessarily the case with a lot of leaders. And at the same time, a lot of influencers and a lot of leaders do show that. And
Yeah.
it's incredible.
It's becoming more popular to show that you care about people. And you have morals and values. Like today, I just saw this influencer. I don't know what she was doing, but she basically took out her followers on a date, and she's like, "Oh, if you guys want to come with me, just send the Venmo me for a tip." And she got $10,000 within like 2 hours. And like she was like, "Wow, like you really restored my belief in humanity." And like it was just such a sweet thing to like just be like, "Okay, we're gonna do." And like the industry is really suffering because it's all outdoor dining and people aren't going out, and like these waiters, like, they live on tips, or some of them. And so that was sweet. And I guess what I'm saying is that it wasn't, she's like, the money is all going to the waiter, like I'm not keeping any of it. And I mean, whether you want to say that whether that's something you would do or not is another discussion. It's just such a nice gesture.
Yeah.
That creates community around supporting people that are struggling, and understanding that people today, because of the industry and because of the pandemic, and not only that, whatever reasons, to understand that people are struggling and trying to help them be fed. And so that actually connects with this idea that maybe that's I guess one example of a woman this week that tried to help people be fed in with the resources that she had, and she could have used that resource to build, I don't know, to build her own brand,
to make money on herself.
yeah, exactly, to walk home with $10,000. But also, I saw the way she approached it. It was such appeal. It was just like, like, I want you guys to come and be part of it. It was so like appealing,
Right.
and it was such a sweet way of just like, let's help people at this time.
Yeah.
And that industry is really suffering, and like those people may not have food.
Yeah.
So that was very sweet.
Yeah.
And it was just like a nice, what I liked about it, I was like, there was good energy. It was just like, oh, this is so fun. And like a lot of times when people ask money for something, it's a very good cause, and like they're not getting traction. And like you think it's like, well, maybe it's because it's like, who wants to be involved in something that's not fun and exciting?
Or that's so like sad and
Yeah.
depressing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, well, either you can like, oh my gosh, it's so like devastating that he has no money, but it's like, wait, like this is so fun. Like, come out to eat with me.
Yeah.
Make it cool. And who wouldn't do something for somebody who they deeply respect, even if it's just deeply respect and fangirling or whatever, there is still that like intense, like appreciation and respect and whatever, wanting to impress. And I guess maybe that's part of the channeling that we're talking about. And I guess this can come back to what we're talking about specifically military and war, because
Yeah.
when you talk about going to war, when you talk about creating militarism, right? Like that was a huge thing in World War One, World War Two, right? And obviously all the wars, not all the wars, but many wars. When a country is fighting, they need the best fighter jets, the best, the best tanks, the most modern, the most expensive, whatever they can get their hands on, they're going to get their hands on. And so much of technology,
always the latest and the greatest.
Always latest and greatest. Oh, money is never an object. It's like, we'll figure out how to pay for it. This is what we need. And that's very warrior type of very like warrior energy of like, Wi-Fi was invented for war, the Morse code, like all of these different technology, and just the force for which people approach fighting wars, that money is just not an object. It's not something we're going to worry about, because we need to win this war.
Right, because if we don't win the war, then we're nothing. So even if we have to take loans or whatever,
even if we're going to go into debt,
yeah,
it's worth it.
We're gonna go and do it. So I guess we can talk about the force, the military prowess.
Yeah.
Like how do you get to that like crazy like ride or die, fight or flight? So maybe fight or flight, because we all know what fight or flight is. Like when something happens and you're stressed out and your body sort of shuts down and you just kind of like get into this panic zone. Maybe that's the fight or flight.
I just want to share one thing really quick about, like, if you want to compare that to like the agriculture versus military, somehow, it's a huge problem in America in general that the farmers are not, they're not being taken care of, and they're not being prioritized as something that needs to be invested in. That's just how it is. It's not a worthwhile investment. But the fact is investing and cultivating in agriculture is so important. It's the foundation of any society.
Yeah.
But then if you look at it and see that it takes a certain level of like humility and vulnerability to like a higher power,
right, that
this venture is going to yield,
that the rain will come,
the rain will come, that so I think that's a whole other like nuance that's so important as we're stepping into a new type of reality, and to appreciate and realize that generally this is not something that people prioritize or invest. Generally, this is not something that people have a scientific way of telling you how things are going to turn out, because we have no idea. Farmers have the most faith in God, because they appreciate and understand that whatever work they do doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, and there, whatever
It's not
whatever you sow
guaranteed.
grows. Excuse me, exactly. It matters, but it's not guaranteed. And somehow, I feel like from the military perspective, it's not like that. I mean, they're very confident, very. That's just how when you're gonna fight a war, you're gonna go for broke. But
So
somehow, so maybe we can talk about translating those values of confidence, of investing everything, about not worrying about going into debt, about not worrying about getting killed, not worrying about getting
right, they're not worried about getting killed. No.
not worrying, and strategy. All these things are such important elements. What if we put that into things that we don't necessarily believe naturally, because it doesn't necessarily make sense, and we kind of have to open ourselves up to the possibility of failing as a farmer.
Right. Well, I think it's not so much about maybe opportunity of failing, but just really deepening the faith and relationship. That's kind of a scary one with Hashem, right? Because so if you want to basically take the best of both worlds, you take the run, that we can't fail, right? And we're going to put everything we can. And then you have, on the other side, you have hard work, ethics, but you're kind of more, not shallow, but not laid back, but just not as
blue collar?
Maybe just more even keeled. The agriculture is more just we do our thing, we're honest, and then the faith is huge in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then so you have these you have the fire and the, not the water, but the fire and the
down to earth.
Yeah,
the earth.
maybe
Maybe fire and earth.
Yeah.
And you're kind of holding both of them in each hand.
Yeah, and you're trying to funnel the resources from the fire, from this warrior, into sustenance, into feeding, into just for an example, we're saying feeding, but for an example, when you have a conversation with someone and they seem a little down, right? They're I walk over to someone and they're struggling inside, but I don't know that they're struggling. And then I give them a compliment. I say wow, I really appreciate that you are so kind, and I love that thing you posted on Instagram, whatever. Something you say, a compliment. I can't think of a real
genuine
compliment right now. But yeah, you give a genuine compliment to someone. That,
in the moment, Rochi can think of a genuine
exactly.
compliment.
Come over to me. Yeah. I give them a genuine compliment, and that builds them up, right? So that is a fire that I have that's some kind of passion that could be oh my gosh, that was the stupidest thing that you did. And I could probably say about that same compliment, that was such a dumb thing, you could have done it so much better. That would have been destructive. That would have been a militant. And then I used that instead, and I built them up. And imagine what that gave them. Maybe they had some gave them self-confidence, because they just were struggling, because they were having questions, they were having self-doubt, whatever. So that's just one example for the listeners to just think about, as far as changing the fire, or not the fire, I don't know why I keep thinking of military as fire, but that's what's coming up for me, into this funneling it into something that sustains. So back to our conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's a beautiful way to bring it to full circle.
Yeah.
I'm curious how, because you said fire, and that's something that's coming up, and I'm curious how that connects with the sword.
Okay.
I don't know how that translates.
I guess I'm thinking bombs and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but
same.
A sword is different. A sword is iron. It's sharp. And it's to end life, pretty much. But it's
hand-to-hand combat.
Hand-to-hand. Yeah, it's hand-to-hand.
Interesting. It's not like dropping a bomb.
Yeah. I don't know. I think all in this conversation we kept talking about modern warfare, where
exactly.
You drop.
That's what we know. That's our reality.
Nagasaki.
Exactly. Decimate the whole thing.
God forbid. But this is it's more of a hand to hand. It's more on the ground. So it's ground.
Boots on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's applications on all levels.
Oh, well, of course.
And that's what came up for us today. It's interesting. I'd actually love to hear what our listeners have to say about the application of the sword, because we definitely got carried away with the other types of military equipment and intelligence or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, and I encourage each and every one of you to think about one thing in your life that you're investing a lot of energy in combat, whatever that looks like, whatever that combat looks like. And you can take that energy, take that tool that you're using to kill, to decimate, to bring down, whatever that is, undermine, undervalue, embarrass, whatever that looks like, that you're really showing up as a combat warrior. And how can you turn that into a farmer, somebody who really cares and cultivates and appreciates every day and every moment, and the blessings that come through your hard work, not because you expect it, but because you believe that Hashem is going to repay and bring like blessing into all the vessels that you placed out before him. Also coming with an open heart and an open mind to know that you don't know how the blessings are going to turn out, and you know that they're coming.